All right, so the first thing I want you to look at is the assignments. So, for reasons I don't quite understand, it's week 2 in the school calendar, even though it's the first week of classes, but it's actually week 2, and the due date is week 4. So, how far away is this assignment due? 2 weeks. Okay, so 14 days. I want this handed in. Now, basically, think of this as homework questions, which I will mark and give you feedback on. Okay? So, in 2 weeks' time, on the same day that you hand in this assignment, you will also do the test for this topic, Chapter 5, Linear Equations. So at the beginning of the class, you will hand in your assignment and you will sit the test. So, if you want to get ready for the test, a very good way to do that is to do this assignment, because some of the questions will be similar. Okay? In the future classes, I will talk about the assignment and go through some of the questions with you. But my advice is, based on teaching Year 11 last year, is to start this as early as possible. A lot of my students last year started it the day before it was due or on the day. It ain't gonna work. Okay? So I suggest you have a look at it tonight. You'll probably find you can do some of the questions already, like the last page. The last page, you're solving some equations. Okay? I also want to draw your attention to some instructions on the first page, such as this one. I actually encourage you to talk about it together. What I don't want you to do is copy someone else's answer, word for word. Okay? What I want you to do is to write your own solution, write down your understanding, because you're going to learn something by doing that. You copying someone else, you learn nothing. That's useless. Okay? So, to make sure that you are submitting your own work, if I find, and only if I find, 2 people who have the exact same wording or very, very similar wording, what I could do is say, hey, can you just explain what we did here? Or I might give you a similar question with the numbers chain, ask you to solve it. Okay? So if you've done the work yourself, that'll be fine, but if you copy it, it'll become very clear. Okay? But discuss it with each other. Please do that. Please talk about it. Don't do your assignments by yourself. There's no need to do everything in life by yourself. And if you can't hand it in on time, let me know as soon as possible. If you're away on the day, send me a message on Teams. Okay, so that's the assignment. The assignment is due in 2 weeks. All right, the next one I want you to look at is the planner. So it's just 1 page. So what I've done on this document is I've given you a breakdown for all of term 1. I've tried to tell you exactly what you are doing on every class that we have this term. What do you notice? Just looking at it quickly. Anything stand out?
Test. Good Friday.
Yeah, no class. The grade are good. Yes, it's important for me too as a teacher that I make sure that I plan it appropriately. Have a look at the right-hand column. So you'll see that there are 3 sets of tests and assignments this term. So there's 1 in 2 weeks. Next one will be 2 weeks after that, and then 1 4 weeks after that. Okay? If you miss a class, you can't say, Mr. Chu, I don't know what you covered that period. I told you on the first lesson. Okay? Which means, if you fall behind or you're away, what you can do is say, Mr. Chu, can I have some help with 1A and 1B? You can message me outside of class and I can help you. Alright? And you'll notice some days we are doing 2 exercises. So think about what that means for how much time you need to spend on this subject outside of class. one thing that you need to understand about doing VCE is that we expect you to spend about 2 to 3 hours per subject at home. So if you don't,
Day?
if you
Is that a day?
per week, sorry, per week. Yeah, for each subject. So if you have 6 subjects, 12 to 15 hours in total. It's a lot. Okay. So to get the full value out of this course, you have to put in the time. There's no other way. There's no shortcuts for hard work on it. I could do the work for you, I would, but I can't. You've got to do the work. Okay. So you know exactly what we're doing. You have an idea of what's coming. There's nothing stopping you from reading ahead and working ahead. In fact, I would encourage it. But I reckon you have a lot on already, having once been a VC student myself. Okay, last one, work program. It looks like this. So the good news is, if you've done your holiday homework, which I will check, you've already done first 6 rows. Okay. So over the next 2 weeks, you need to complete the next 3 exercises and the assignment, and you'll be good to go for your test. Okay? So again, I've tried to tell you up front what I want you to do, and it's up to you to make sure that it gets done. Now, if you not scroll down, if you look further down the page, again, I've told you about how I'm going to assess this topic linear equations. So, first of all, you have an assignment, we just looked at that. Second, you will have a test. It will be very similar to the test that you did last year in the midterm. So there'll be some multiple choice questions, there'll be some short answer questions. Calculators are always around this subject. You don't have to do anything by hand. You need to show working, but this is not a subject about algebra. Okay? And one bound reference. So I suggest that you use the same book for the whole year. So that the notes that you write for this test, you can bring in to your exam at the end of the semester. And I've given you some tips for how to get ready for your test. Things that I think you already know, but just revisit carefully. Alright, so that's me trying to help you get a handle on what's happening and what's coming up in this subject. Do you have any questions?
So we just have to do 5G, 5H, and 5.
Correct. So we're going to do 5G today. If you look at the schedule, 5G is today. Friday, you're going to pass because you've got the big systematic program. So we don't see each other until next Tuesday. And then Wednesdays, we don't cover any new content because some of you have questions. Alright, so if you're a VCE student, that's some private study time. If you're doing VCAL, then you're either here, waiting, that's what you're also doing in person. And then next Friday, we'll finish the chapter. And then the following Tuesday will be when everything's due. Okay? So are we clear on when your assignment is in and when the test is happening? It's 2 weeks from now. Okay? Make sure you get onto this assignment as soon as possible. I'll remind you next week, but make sure you look at the assignment before next Tuesday. Don't leave it too late, okay? Alright, would you like a quick break? Yes. 2-minute brain break? Yes. Alright, let's stay in the classroom. All right, year 11s, it's time to get rolling. So, I think the best way to describe this is I'm going to teach. You just had sunglasses on, it looked strange. Yeah. All right. Just a question for you. I didn't have learning intentions and success criteria when I was at school. Do you pay attention to that? You know, when it's done well, it can be really good. But I suspect some teachers just write it on the board and never refer to it. Maybe I can try to make it work, but like I haven't really done it in my time at this school. Okay, so what we're doing today is linear modeling. Is that too small?
Yes.
All right, let's see if this works. Actually, that's okay because if you have the textbook, you can read the question. Who does not have a textbook? Hands up. Okay. All right, are there enough to share? There's one there, so can two of you share? All right, so today what we want to focus on is using linear equations to model real-world situations. Up until now, it's been y and x everywhere, and there's been no meaning to those letters. From this point onwards, and in the first two questions of your assignment, we want to use linear equations to do real things. So have a look at the graph in question 1 of 5Q. We're going to do this first question today. It's actually on your work program, so we're actually doing part of your homework here. Okay? Tell me about the graph. What's the graph about? The question gives you some information. So what's the story being told here?
The amount of fuel in the tank of the car after driving for a distance d from.
Okay. So what do you notice about the slope of the graph? What can you tell me about the slope? The slope is negative. How do we know it's negative? Because as we go this way, the graph is going down. Now, if I'm driving and I've got fuel in the tank, do I expect the amount of fuel to go down the longer I drive? Yeah. Okay, so this makes sense. All right? Have any of you done any driving yet? Yeah. You did driving lessons last year, right? So you know how this works. Okay, cool. All right. So the first part of this question asks, how much fuel is in the tank at the beginning?
45 liters.
Okay. Is this a maths question? Kind of. This question is asking you to read the graph. So you've got to understand what the graph is telling you. In order to do part A, you need to locate this point on the graph. What are the coordinates of this graph? So if I write two numbers like that, what would go inside? 45 and 0, but in what order? Would it be 0, 45 or 45, 0? I call this D. I call this fuel. They don't give a letter for fuel. So it's D, comma, fuel. Does that help you? So remember, the horizontal value comes first. Where am I on the horizontal line at this point? 0. That's why the first number of this coordinate is 0. Okay? So the second number is going to be 45. So notice, to answer this question, I had to read this point off the graph. I had to look for what we call the intercepts, where the graph hits the vertical axis at a horizontal value of 0. Right, so once you've read that point off the graph, then you can say, initially, there is 45 liters of fuel. Okay? Because I read the point 0, 45. If it was at 0, 50, then there will be 50 liters initially. Okay? All right, part B. This question asks us to find the amount of fuel in the tank after we've traveled 50 kilometers. So where should I look on the graph this time? So you found this point. Okay, what are the coordinates of that point? 50, 40. Remember, the horizontal value comes first. In this case, the horizontal value is distance. So if I've traveled 50 kilometers, then I go upwards and look at how much fuel is left. And if I read that value, it's 40. Okay? So after traveling 50 kilometers, there is 40 liters of petrol left. All right, last one. After we've traveled 200 kilometers, how much petrol is left?
25.
Yeah, and how did you get that, Bruce?
Went to 200, then went up to
Nice.
the
Okay, so you went to the end here, right? And you saw that the y value was 25 there. Okay. So I'll finish the sentence, 25. All right. Can you give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a middle to tell me how you are feeling about this question after just covering it?
Are we supposed to write that down?
Well, this is the first question on the work program, so, you know, you don't have to. If you missed it, I've recorded this class and I'll post it on YouTube later. The answers are 45, 40, and 25. And you're done. All right, can I go to a new page? All right, so now we're looking at question 6. All right, so question 6. This time, there's no graph. But we're given enough information to construct a linear graph. So let's look at the key information here. The first piece of information is that petrol costs $1.57 per litre. That's the first piece of information we need to know. Yeah, now it's changed. So obviously this is an old textbook, right? Before everything happened, yeah. All right. The second thing we are told is that there was already 7 liters in the tank. And I guess there's one more piece of information, maximum 60 liters of petrol. So 7 liters initially, $1.57 per extra liter. All right. And in this question, we're asked, what is the cost, C, of adding V liters of petrol. If you haven't done a question like this before, this can be quite challenging. Does anyone have an idea what kind of relationship I could describe between C and V? So when you're really experienced, you can just write down the answer. But it takes a lot of thinking the first time you do something like this. Not sure? Alright, so let me help you out. How much would it cost to add 1 liter? $1.57? Okay. How much would it cost to add 2 liters of petrol? You don't need to tell me the exact number, but what would you do? Yep. So 157 times 2. What if I wanted to add 10 liters of petrol? Times it by 10. Okay? What if I want to add V liters of petrol, where V could be any number? Times V by 1.57. Okay? So the cost, C, is equal to 1.57 times the number of liters added. You could all do it with 1, 2, 3, and 10.
Wait, what question is this? 6A.
In exercise 5G. Okay. All right. You could all do this with the values of 1, 2, and 10, but as soon as I change it to V, the brain seemed to melt, like I noticed from experience. But remember, if you're in doubt, just change V into a number. Okay? Okay, I haven't actually assigned this question for you. So this is not part of your work program. One of the reasons is because it asks you to draw a graph. And I don't want you to waste time drawing up a grid in your book. Whenever you do a test or an assignment, I will give the grid to you. Okay? But just to show you what this would look like, I now want to sketch the graph. So I know that C equals 1.57 times V. Why have I put V here rather than here? This is what I'm changing. So normally in science, have you called things independent variables in science? No? Okay, that's awkward. Normally the thing that you're changing goes on the bottom. Okay? So in an experiment, the variable that you change, that's called the independent variable, that's what goes here. So really, I'm changing V. So that's why I've chosen to put V here. Okay. All right. Are you happy with me saying that there's going to be a point in the middle here? Why? What does that point mean? If I add no petrol, it won't cost me anything. That's all this point is saying. And then, at some point, I'll reach another point, remembering that there's only 60 liters of petrol maximum, so 60 minus 7 is 53. So there's already 60 liters of petrol inside. So the maximum number I can add is 53, not 60. I can't add 60 liters because there's already petrol in there and it will overflow. Okay. How do I get the coordinates of this point? I've already given you the x value, or the v value, I should say.
So we times 53 or V by C.
Beautiful. So here, the maximum number of liters of petrol I can add is 53. So now I'm asking the question, if I add 53 liters of petrol, how much will it cost? What's the value of C going to be when V is 53? Exactly. Take the amount that you add and multiply it by the price, which is 1.57. So I don't know what this number is, but maybe one of you who has a calculator nearby or a browser calculator can tell me.
$3.21.
Thank you. Yeah. So I went to New Zealand over the break, and there petrol's like $2.50 per liter. Yeah, it was almost $100 to fill up a tank.
Say like 60 cents.
It was painful. All right. Okay, so I'm about to let you do some practice. I know that this can feel quite overwhelming. The key is to talk about it with each other. Talk about it with me if you're unsure. For some of you, this is going to come really easily. You'll see it straight away. But for others, this is going to take a lot of time. And that's why I want you to start the assignment early, because the first two questions on the assignment are this style. You're modeling with linear equations. All right. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? All right, so I'll come around and see how you're going. But make a start on 5G, please. You've already done question 1, and refer to the work program for what you're going to do next.